What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rovardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. No victory from Monday for us today. An embarrassing loss yesterday for the New York Giants, 28-3 at home versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm sure you guys saw our rant video yesterday reacting to the game. We were not happy, and we're still not happy. And a few weird things happened during yesterday's game. Post-game, Malik Nabers had some comments that raised some eyebrows and apparently ruffled some feathers, so we're going to go ahead and react to those. And also, Deontay Banks. This is now the second time that he had a glaringly obvious play with a severe lack of effort. We want to go ahead and react to both of those things and discuss what they mean for this team and how we're feeling about it. And also, of course, the conversation about the quarterback. It's inevitable. We're going to have it in pretty much every single episode. Brian Daboll did confirm today that he feels like Daniel Jones gives him the best chance to win. He will be the starter next Monday night versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I have quite a few thoughts on that. We will get into that at some point in this episode. But just first and foremost, I want to lay this out here for you, Alex, because last night I was on the phone with my sister. She doesn't really follow football too much, okay? This is kind of, for context, she's a Giants fan, but she doesn't watch Giants games. She's a fan because I'm a fan. She knows key players. She knows, how bad they've been, right? So I'm on the phone with her. I'm like, you remember Saquon Barkley, right? She's like, yeah, of course I know who Saquon Barkley is. Yeah, he's Giants' best player. I was like, well, actually, he's not on the Giants anymore. He's on the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm sure you understand what that means. She's like, well, I know that we all hate the Eagles. I'm like, yes, hate the Eagles very badly. So we're not happy that he's with Philadelphia. We're okay that he left for different reasons, but not happy about him being with Philadelphia. She's like, okay. And I'm like, so he came back to MetLife today, and he played for the Eagles against the New York Giants, and he absolutely torched us. And she was like, that sounds like one of the most embarrassing sports stories I've ever heard. And I was like, you know what? It really is. Like, when you really boil all of this down, take the context away about the contract and having to pay him and running backs. Just think about what happened to the New York Giants yesterday. It's not like they were competitive against Saquon Barkley and the Eagles. They literally got embarrassed. They let their best player, like the household name. My sister doesn't watch the Giants, but she knows Saquon Barkley. She knows that he was the focal point of the Giants. And he just torched us for like 180 yards yesterday. Absolutely blew out the Giants. Just think about how embarrassing that really is when you boil it down. Think about how John Mara must feel, how Joe Shane must feel over such an embarrassing moment for this franchise. Listen, guys, the Giants have had a lot of embarrassing moments over the last 10 years. This is near the top for sure. To let your best player walk to your most hated rival and for him to come back out for blood in a revenge game like that, simply put, just embarrassing. Alex, how are you doing today? How are you feeling after yesterday's loss? Like I said, I'm feeling embarrassed. I'm pissed off. I'm disappointed. I'm all of these negative emotions rolled into one. We're probably putting the parental advisory logo on the beginning of this video. Just throwing that out there. I'm sure that you have some passionate words for the audience today. But, how are you feeling? And anything that comes to mind immediately taken away from yesterday's game?
I mean, listen, guys, I got a lot of frustration out during yesterday's ranting episode about, of course, the coaching, Daniel Jones, and the Deontay Banks and him not hustling, but some damning things are coming out today about how players tend to feel. I know Daniel Jones spoke about being benched in the fourth quarter, and it wasn't because they were out of range of winning. It was because they were trying to find a spark. How rich. Brian Daboll says today that Daniel Jones is starting against the Steelers, and meanwhile, yesterday he claims that he was trying to find a spark on offense, and he was going to his $5 million backup quarterback journeyman who's never been good in the NFL to find the spark, which indicates to me he doesn't believe his $40 million quarterback can generate that spark either. But one thing is true. Daniel Jones is better than Drew Lock. And the fact of the matter is, even though Daniel Jones is better than Drew Lock, this offense still has only managed 10 combined points in 2 weeks. There is nothing worse than feeling like you have no hope. And I have a couple friends who are Jets fans, right? And they say to me, this is the worst thing in the world. We have all this talent, all this hope, and we can't win a game. We're horrible. And I'm like, you know what's worse than that? Feeling like you literally have zero to root for. The Giants right now are so bad and so mismanaged and so poorly run that I don't have any reason to root for this team on any given week. I have no reason to convince myself that there's even a chance we can win. I'm a Giants fan, to the death. But the truth of the matter right now is that I don't think they can win any single game. I don't think that they're good enough. I don't think that they have the balls to win a game, And I want to make one thing very clear, Anthony, and I want to start, and we're going to talk about Daniel Jones because obviously it ends up going full circle anyway. But I want to make something very clear. There is only one thing standing between Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll getting fired right now, and it's their rookie draft class. It's the only thing stopping them from absolutely being fired, in my personal opinion. Andrew Phillips, Malik Nabers, those two guys, and by the way, don't sleep on Tyler Nubin. He's been fantastic. This rookie draft class is the only reason we are not calling for heads right now. Heads on spikes. That's my personal opinion. Brian Daboll's play calling yesterday was not only uninspiring, it was borderline ridiculous. We ran the ball 3 times in the first half. I don't care how, behind you are in the first half. We weren't even losing by that much. We were still well within competing in the first half. And the Giants' production has come primarily because of their ground game the last couple weeks with Tyrone Tracy and the passing and the screen game. They abandoned the screen game, they abandoned the run game, and they asked Daniel Jones to go out there and go through progressions and beat the Eagles with his eyes and with his arm. And we know for a fact he is incapable of doing either of those things. Most of his receptions have been within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. And I want to know something. A lot of people said to me during the draft process about Jaden Daniels that he could not throw to the middle of the football field, and that's why he was going to be a bad NFL quarterback. You want to know who doesn't throw to the middle of the football field? Daniel Jones. He literally avoids the middle of the field like it's the fucking plague. And I don't understand how people sit there and act as though everything is going wrong. A lot of the pressure, he turned, I think, 10 pressures into 5 sacks yesterday. Look, the offensive line wasn't good by any means, but you have to do more. You have to get rid of the ball faster. You have to be more decisive. That's what great quarterbacks do. They get more decisive. They become more anticipatory. You showed me a video this morning of Drew Lock when he released that ball to Jalen Hyatt down the sideline late in the game. Jalen Hyatt was not even close to open, but when the ball got to him, he was wide open. That's called anticipatory throwing. I don't think I've seen Daniel Jones make an anticipatory throw more than once outside of the Seattle Seahawks game where he had that mirage contest, which I called it a mirage until proven otherwise, and now we know the otherwise is absolute booty cheeks. I mean, God, it's just hard to fathom how poor you can look on any given week and go from looking competent to incompetent so quickly. And listen, I know Andrew Thomas losing him is a horrible thing. I know it hurts everybody, but the play calling was uninspiring. The passing was uninspiring. We had a couple drops once again. Wan'Dale Robinson, I love you to death, man. You would be so freaking good if you could hold on to the goddamn football. And there was a throw that one that he dropped, by the way, on that third down. You want to know who's wide open? You sent me the video. Malik Nabers, wide open. After that contest yesterday, Nabers came out and said, "Go check the tape. I am open." Why is Daniel Jones not throwing to his WR1 who is clearly saying, "I am open"? I watched a play where Darius Slayton's coming across the middle of the field on a dig route, and Nabers is running a deep post across the middle of the field. Nabers turns around mid-play to point at Darius Slayton, who is wide open. Daniel Jones, for some odd reason, is running around in the backfield with nobody around him. There's not that many people around him that could have taken him down that specific moment. He throws off platform, sidearmed, and throws it behind Darius Slayton, who has nobody within 10 yards of him. Right? These are the differences between winning and losing games. You are a $40 million quarterback who cannot set his feet and make an accurate throw. You can't throw on the run accurately, which is the difference between winning and losing a lot of times at the NFL level these days. You tell me what you think about it. Looking at what Malik Nabers said after that game yesterday, it was about as damning as it gets. He does not trust Daniel Jones to hit him when he's open. And your star receiver, guys, your WR1, your guy you just spent a really, really valuable draft capital piece on, is coming out and saying that he is open and he's not getting the football. Whose fault is that? There's only one person to blame. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. Listen, I have a lot of opinions on this Malik Nabers comment, basically saying I was open, turn on the target tape, I was open. I'm going to save my, Alex, you know that I have a rant planned in this one later on in the episode about Daniel Jones and, him being the clear-cut best quarterback on this team. I'm going to save that. But I'm going to make some points about the Nabers comment. The Nabers comment was very easy to take and to interpret as blame for Daniel Jones. And that's what a lot of Giants fans did, myself included, because I'm pissed off and I'm frustrated with the quarterback play that we've seen this season. So it was very easy to do that. But Malik Nabers did not do that himself. He did not say the throws were off target. He did not say the quarterback wasn't hitting me when I was open. He just said, watch the tape, I'm open. He is right. I spent an hour this morning combing through the All-22 and watching pretty much every route that Malik Nabers ran. He was open almost all game. But it wasn't always Daniel Jones' fault that he didn't get the ball. Sometimes he was the third, fourth read on a play. To me, that's ridiculous. If you're Brian Daboll and you're calling the plays, you're WR1, your superstar receiver, no way he should be the third, fourth read. He should be the first, second read every single play. Within the first two reads, he should get a look. No way you should be going 1, 2, 3. Oh, now we're looking at Nabers. That's ridiculous. All right, number 2, some of those plays that he was open. Wide open. There was a play where the Eagles had a busted coverage, Alex. I know I sent this to you this morning. I posted it on social media. Eagles had a busted coverage. Nabers would have walked in. I don't care who was throwing this ball. Dude, you could have thrown this ball. I could have thrown this ball. He would have been so wide open. Doesn't matter. Ball just had to lay out there. However, he was sacked. Daniel Jones was sacked almost instantly. The coverage was busted. Nabers would have been open. Daniel Jones physically could not have gotten that ball off. Not Daniel Jones' fault. The offensive line's fault. But then there was another play. 3rd and long, I think it was 3rd and 7. Malik Nabers and Darius Slayton are both running curl routes against the zone coverage. Slayton runs his on the left side of the field, and it's a really tight window. If you look over to the right side of the field, Malik Nabers is absolutely wide open. Nobody within 5 to 7 yards around him. Totally open for the first down. Daniel Jones pumps twice to Darius Slayton, then runs into a sack. That one's on Daniel Jones. So, again, Malik Nabers said, I was open, watch the tape. I did. And what I found is that it wasn't just the quarterback failing to get him the ball. The offensive line failed him as well, and so did the play caller / head coach. It was an overall disaster class from the New York Giants offense from all 3 levels. Quarterback play, and you know what? I'm going to take it even a step further. 4th reason why. Malik Nabers started taking plays off in the second half. Everybody's going to point to Deontay Banks, and they're going to say that effort was atrocious, he needs to be benched. And I'm not calling for Malik Nabers to be benched, but I will point out there were some of those plays where he knew he was not getting the ball. He knew that there was no way Daniel Jones was getting to his 3rd or 4th read. So he stopped trying on those routes. He wasn't running those routes with the maximum effort. It's a lot easier, Alex, to see a lack of effort on defense because it's players choosing not to make tackles. It's very obvious. But when you're watching offense, it's a lot harder to see those things unless you're watching the film. But you can see it. It does show up on the film, and they do see it and hear it in the locker room. Malik Nabers absolutely did give up at some point in the second half, but so did most of those New York Giants players. And how can you blame them when you're going through an entire game not being able to move the ball an inch in all 4 quarters? The frustration boils over. These players give up, and I can't really be upset with them. I get it. I know why Giants fans want Deontay Banks benched. I know why they're upset with Malik Nabers for his comments. But you got to look at it from the perspective of these players. Banks, not used to losing, man. At Maryland, he won a lot of games, and he had a lot of success. Malik Nabers at SEC, or at LSU in the SEC, scoring all those touchdowns with a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, he's just not used to this shit. Nobody gets used to this shit except for Giants fans because we've been going through it for 8 straight years, you know? It's so tough for Giants fans to get into the perspective of these young kids who are in this locker room and have never lost football games before. But if you're Malik Nabers and you're Deontay Banks, you are pissed off. Now, you can never give up on the team. That's something that they got to learn, but they will. But I can't blame them for being frustrated. And like I said, if you do look at that target tape that Malik Nabers is talking about, you will absolutely see he was open. Our WR1 that we expect to be open every single play, he's doing his job. He's getting open on those plays where he's given his maximum effort. But it's at a certain point in that game, he stopped giving that maximum effort because he just knew, whether it was because of the play calling, the offensive line, or the quarterback, one of those reasons or another, that ball was never coming his way. And so at the end of the day, when you're at that point, when you're that frustrated and you just stop caring, you know that there are big problems on that sideline and in that locker room. And you know that the Giants players are finally starting to lose faith in this project. And if they lose faith in this project, it's a very, very slippery slope for Brian Daboll. And how quickly can he lose his job if players are losing faith? But I mentioned it there, Alex. I talked a little bit about Deontay Banks and the effort. We all know the play that I'm talking about. Jalen Hurts running up the right sideline. Deontay Banks had an opportunity to tackle him. He literally runs right by him, chooses not to. Extra 8 yards rushing for Jalen Hurts. That was one of the most blatant displays of a lack of effort and a lack of F's given from a Giants player that I've seen in a very long time. Alex, what's your reaction to it? Do you think that Deontay Banks deserves to have some sort of punishment, a benching? Where are you at with Deontay Banks, his effort, and how the Giants need to handle his discipline?
I mean, you can't bench him because if you're going to start Daniel Jones because he gives us the best chance to win, you can't bench Deontay Banks because he gives us the best chance to win. The logic is backward there. But consequences, the Giants, I mean, what do you do? Like, Adoree Jackson's hurt. Cordell Flott's hurt. Nick McLeod's horrible. They don't have anyone else that can play on the outside. Trey Hawkins got hurt in this most recent game. You just have to demand effort. You know what I mean? Like, the Giants can't afford to bench Deontay Banks. He's their CB1, and he's taking plays off, and that's a reflection on the coaching staff, dude. Like, that's a reflection on the lack of respect that Deontay Banks has for the coaching staff, in my opinion. You don't give up. Like, you're playing a sport for a living. You know what I mean? Like, I know you're losing. I know the game's over, but as long as you are out there, you need to be maximizing your effort because you can't take it for granted. He's a young kid. He's frustrated. He's pissed off. The Giants offense isn't giving him any reason to fight because they're fighting for losses here, right? But it's about self-pride. And oftentimes when I think players give up on themselves, it's because the coaching staff is losing their way. It's because they don't have any faith in the guys around them. It's because they're not being inspired to do a better job, to keep things going. I am very, very, very scared this locker room is going to implode fast. The leadership of this team has to step up very, very quickly. That was one of the biggest things that the Giants lost, and we called it this past offseason, Anthony. The biggest thing the Giants lost, it wasn't Saquon's production. It wasn't Xavier McKinney's production. It was their leadership. They kept them alive and at least fighting until the final whistle of the final game without saying a peep. We have young players on this team that are starting to say things, whether it be on the field or after the games. I'm open, check the tape, lack of effort. This is the type of thing that leadership has to bring up. Saquon Barkley would never have let that happen on offense, would never have let Malik Nabers show a lack of effort. Xavier McKinney would have never let Deontay Banks show a lack of effort. You replaced him with a rookie, and Tyler Nubin's a good player, but he's not respected yet by this team. He's just too young. He's too inexperienced. And look, this is my objective analysis. I don't know if this is true, but this is just how I feel. This is what I'm seeing. There are young players in this team that are starting to show with their body, the way that they're acting, and the thing that they're saying is that they do not feel confident, that they do not feel respected, they do not feel like this team can win. That is a reflection on the leadership, not only in the coaching staff, but the veterans. I think Dexter Lawrence is a fine leader, but he can't be the only one. I think Bobby Okereke is a great leader, but he can't be the only one. The secondary does not have a leader, right? It's supposed to be Deontay Banks. He's the guy. He's supposed to be the alpha dog in that scenario. He is battled. He is hurt. His confidence is shot. He's being thrown under the bus. He's being blamed. And this is a moment in his career where the adversity has to be overcome. This is what will define the next couple of weeks, the rest of his season, really. I think right now the leadership on the coaching staff has to save him from himself, battle it out, because this is just a stepping stone. Next year could be different. Every week could be different. And I get he doesn't want to go risk his health, and he doesn't want to hit Jalen Hurts when it's 28-3. But the Giants don't have anyone else to put out there, right? He has to play. Like, everyone they've put out there is hurt already. They have nobody else. So, how do you feel about it, though? Like, I personally think it's leadership crumbling in week 7, heading into week 8. If they get dogged by the Steelers, which is very, very likely, we might be looking at a collapse here that if it spirals to a degree that is not sustainable, I don't think Daboll survives the rest of the season. You know what I mean? I think that's where it's going to end up.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough when you lose the locker room. Like I said, it's a slippery slope, and it's very difficult to keep your job as the head coach. Where I'm at with Deontay Banks is this. I think we all know that I am maybe the biggest Deontay Banks fan. Like, I have been a fan of him since before he was on the Giants. I support him through thick and thin. I say, look at the flashes. There's potential there. He's just failing to realize his potential for one reason or another. I honestly, I make excuses for him sometimes. I do, because I'm a big fan of him, and I really think he has the potential to be something special in this league. If I'm Brian Daboll, he is absolutely being benched for at least the first half of this game on Monday night, because the effort is unacceptable. He had strike 1 against Dallas. You got to have some sort of discipline for strike 2, because really there shouldn't be a strike 2. This should be a one and done thing. Your effort should lack one time, and then it never happens again. If it does, you just simply have to be disciplined, because honestly, Alex, I feel like that's been a problem. Last year, when Xavier McKinney called out Wink Martindale publicly in the media, he didn't get benched. Nothing happened. And I'm not saying that was the right or wrong decision. I'm just saying it's something that happened, or rather something that didn't happen. This time around, Deontay Banks twice now has shown a lack of effort. And the Giants so far have shown a lack of discipline. You can't keep letting things like that slide in the locker room. They will compound. It will intensify. It will get out of hand. You will lose the locker room and you will lose your job if you're Brian Daboll. So as much as I like Deontay Banks, as much as I can recognize he is our best cornerback and he does give us the best chance of winning on Monday night, you're going to have to bench him anyway. He cannot have that privilege just because he's a good player. This is a team at the end of the day. Alex, I don't know if you watched all 4 quarters of that Steelers-Jets game last night. Probably not, because it was a pretty shitty game. Maybe you did because you were sweating some parlays. I'm not sure. But they did a little bit of an interview with Mike Tomlin, and they were talking about how he told Chris Collinsworth and Mike Tirico in the off seasons, the Steelers absolutely do lose opportunities to sign players. Free agents want to come to the Steelers, and then they change their minds. Why? Because they know that if they sign with the Steelers, they're going to have to practice way more with Pittsburgh than they do if they sign with a different team. That is a culture. That is the reason Mike Tomlin has never coached a losing season. He is a great head coach, one of the greatest in NFL history. And he understands there are players who don't want to put in that extra work at practice. And he says, fine, goodbye, good riddance. If that's not the type of player you are, then I don't want you here. The Giants don't have that culture. They have a losing culture, and they have a country club culture. We have complained about this before with Brian Daboll. The lack of practice reps, the lack of effort put into the preseason, the lack of playing time given to the starters in the preseason. It all correlates. There's a lot of teams that are afraid that they won't have enough men to suit up on Sunday nights, right? That they won't have a full, healthy roster on Sundays, so they don't practice hard at all during the week. There are players around the NFL that know that, and they like to sign with those teams because they're lazy. But the players that like to put in the extra effort and work day in and day out, they sign with teams like the Steelers. And what do? They win football games with the Steelers. The New York Giants don't win football games because they don't practice like that, they don't have a culture like that, and they don't discipline like that. If somebody did this on Mike Tomlin's team, gave up on a play like that, that player's probably not playing any of the 4 quarters in the next contest. And that's the different standard between a winning franchise in the NFL and a losing, 8 years going on losing franchise in the NFL. This New York Giants team has been bad for a decade, and it's because of this culture, this relaxed, the players run the team culture. The head coach needs to step in here, discipline this player, and set a goddamn example here, because this is unacceptable. That needs to be the new standard, and that's what I thought we were getting with Brian Daboll. You know, Brian Daboll, for all of his faults, I thought that he was going to be a commanding presence in the locker room. I thought that he was going to be a guy, he doesn't take any bullshit. He is going to make sure that his players are in line, ducks in a row. Instead, we've gotten a temperamental head coach with those temper tantrums on the sideline. Not this season. Respect to him. He hasn't done it this season. We've gotten him throwing temper tantrums on the sideline in the past. We've had his players and coaches call him out publicly, and he's done little about it to nothing. That is not the culture that you see around the league with these teams that consistently win. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the perfect example. The New York Giants, the culture is a mess. That is why they keep losing games. And one last point, Alex, I know you're chomping at the bit here. You got something to say, but one last point. The Giants need to take another page out of the Steelers playbook. It's not just the one about disciplining your players and making sure that they're working hard. The perfect example as to why Daniel Jones needs to be benched was on display last night for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were winning games, 10-1 touchdown to interception ratio from Justin Fields and a 4-2 record. And they put his ass on the bench anyways. Why? Not because they knew that Russell Wilson was better, because they wanted to know what they had on their roster. Is there any potential for a growth in their ceiling? Is Russell Wilson maybe better than Justin Fields, or is Justin Fields better and we're going to roll with him? We don't know until we see it on the field. Can we all definitively say that Daniel Jones is better than Drew Lock without at least seeing Drew Lock on the field? We can't definitively say it until we see it. The Giants, again, not only need to take a page out of Tomlin's playbook in terms of disciplining and working the players, take a page out of the playbook, find out what you have on your roster. Find out if you are right or wrong about your quarterback right now while you still have an iota of hope left in this season. Make the fucking change and find out what you have in that quarterback room.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Steelers are also just a really smart organization. Let's point to the one point you kind of, it wasn't exactly what you were saying, but it goes right into it. The Steelers brought in Russell Wilson and said, hey, buddy, we're going to let you compete with Justin Fields. We're going to let you compete for the starting job. It's actually, the starting job is pretty much yours when you come around to being healthy. Because as you saw last night, Justin Fields' style was they were a running team. They were run, 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 run. Now they have a passing game, and they're a running team. And now you have a good blend. The balance of passing and Najee Harris was excellent yesterday. They're a legitimate team now. They opened up a whole portion of their playbook that was buried with Justin Fields. So, listen, what they did though was they brought in Russell Wilson. They said, hey, like, don't forget, like, the Giants met with Russell Wilson. He was with he came to the facilities. Like, they spoke to him. And you want to know what they fucking said to him straight to his face? You are backing up Daniel Jones. That's what they said to him. He walked out that door and he said, fuck you, John Mara, screw you, Joe Schoen, and freaking die, Brian Daboll, because I am going right over to Pittsburgh where they're going to give me a starting job with a Mike Tomlin-led team, an elite defense, and I don't even have to fight for it. They waited until he was healthy. And the Giants are sitting here wondering, why didn't we give him a chance to beat Daniel Jones? Why did we... Russell Wilson is going to be a Hall of Famer one day. And these guys are sitting here telling me that Daniel Jones coming off an ACL tear is going to be any sort of competent? I mean, look, the truth is Russell Wilson, yeah, he's not as good as he used to be, but Daniel Jones is never going to be good in general, right? Like, this is...
Daniel Jones isn't as good as he used to be.
That's also a fact. You can't throw the ball downfield. And listen, the Giants are a poorly run organization for many different reasons, but one of them being they can't make the easy decisions. They constantly have to shoot themselves in the foot. They constantly have to make things harder for themselves. The easy decision says Daniel Jones has to go to the bench. Why? Because we already know what he is. We don't know what Drew Lock is. Keep the locker room guessing. Keep the locker room rallying. If they don't make any changes, they will lose the locker room. If they go to Daniel Jones, if they go to Drew Lock instead of Daniel Jones, at least these guys have a sense of what if, what is he going to do? Is he capable? At least you buy yourself an extra week or two before things get bad again, and then you go to Tommy DeVito and you just do that same circus until you get to the end of the season. And eventually you get to the end of the season and you've managed to exhaust all of your possible stalling options, and you just don't let things deteriorate. That's why the Jets just fired Robert Saleh, because they knew frustration was boiling over. They went and got Devontae Adams. It's a circus, guys. They're playing a game. They're playing the blame game. They get Reddick back. They restructure his contract. They waive all the $12 million in fees. Like, they're playing a game right now, guys. Right? They're trying to keep people involved, and it worked. It worked. People are bought into the Jets again, even though they lost last week. They're still talking about the freaking playoffs for them. The Giants, however, have the same record, and we are nowhere close to that conversation. So, this is kind of the situation we're at right now, is that things are getting really bad very fast. And I have to be honest, Anthony, I know this morning Bill Belichick was on the Pat McAfee show. You want to know what he was doing? Ripping apart the Giants front office, ripping them to shreds. The best mind in football historically is ripping the Giants front office and coaching staff to shreds, publicly, by the way. I mean, is that a shot at John Mara? It's definitely an indication that he doesn't agree with what he's doing. But I have to say, man, I'm starting to think that Brian Daboll's not going to make it through the season. I'm starting to think that they may turn this thing over to Kafka. They may turn this thing over to Shane Bowen. I mean, it's probably going to be Kafka, not Shane Bowen, because of the experience with this team. But I mean, it could be anybody. It could be anybody. I don't know. I really don't. It could be anybody. It doesn't really matter because this team's screwed anyway this season. But what I will say is, I don't know if Brian Daboll's going to survive this. I think that Joe Schoen may. But after Saquon Barkley's performance yesterday, I don't know if Joe Schoen's safe either. You know what I mean? Because John Mara is probably looking at him saying, dude, like, you just let Saquon come in here and run 175 yards with 2 touchdowns on us. If I'm John Mara, I'm not saying Joe Schoen is on the hot seat, but what I am saying is John Mara must be very, very upset right now.
Embarrassed. Just like what I was saying at the beginning of this episode, you have to put it in the perspective of, imagine you don't watch this team like religiously. I know that most of the people who listen to the show religiously follow this team. They know everything. They know every detail. And we try our best to update you guys and give you the analysis on every single detail that happens with this team. But imagine you are the casual fan, and all you know is Saquon Barkley is the superstar of this team and he's their best player. Wow, now he's on the Eagles and he just ran for 180 yards against the Giants. Think about how fucking embarrassing that is if you really just boil it down to how simple and embarrassing it is. It is actually a sad, sad moment that happened on the Giants field yesterday. It was truly embarrassing. So I don't think that either of these guys are safe. Like, people debate all the time, Daboll's got to be safe. Look at what he's done in certain moments. Look at what Joe Shane's done. He's got to be safe too. I don't think that's the case. I think you really have to take it week by week and assess at the end of the season. I don't know if either of them get fired before the end of the season, but at the end of the season, John Mara definitely has some very difficult decisions to make. Him and Steve Tisch are going to sit down. They're probably going to use an outside consultant, and they're going to make a decision going forward about what they should do. And Alex, you mentioned Saquon Barkley left. So did Xavier McKinney. 2 for the price of 1. If you did not pay Daniel Jones, you could pay both Saquon and Xavier McKinney, and you'd have an extra $13 million to spend on a bridge quarterback, a.k.a. Sam Darnold. This team is in the playoffs. Yeah. So, listen, not to play revisionist history, but you guys can go back on the channel and scroll through our Instagram shorts, and you will see my face screaming about how the Giants should give Daniel Jones the franchise tag. That offseason before they signed him, I was one of the biggest proponents, biggest advocates for franchise tagging Daniel Jones in this Giants Twitter community and YouTube community. You can find the receipts. I don't care. I'm not going to pull them up for you, but you can find them if you want to. Franchise tagging that man was always the right decision. Signing him to that contract was always going to be a risk. The Giants played a very risky card, and they got bit in the ass for it. They've lost their 2 best players, and now we are once again a losing football team with no hopes of making the playoffs, and it's not even fucking Halloween yet. So, hey, just a quick pause in this episode to let you know what you're about to witness is the most intense crash out that we've probably ever had on this channel. I lost my cool. If you're not trying to hear me scream, you're not trying to hear me curse, now's your chance to just click off this video. Otherwise, strap the fuck in. Last thing I gotta give my take on, Alex. Grand finale of the episode, I guess. Brian Daboll saying today that he believes. Brian Daboll said Daniel Jones will start because he gives the Giants the best chance to win. Somebody on social media, I'm not going to say their name, said based on the quarterback room, that's a fact. I'm fuming reading that. How is that a fact? Alex, explain it to me. How is it a fucking fact that Daniel Jones gives his team the best chance to win when last year Tommy DeVito stepped onto this fucking roster with 0 NFL experience, no Andrew Thomas, backup level practice squad fucking wide receivers, won 3 games in a row, 2 at home, 1 on primetime. Daniel Jones is in year 6 of his career and doesn't have a single home primetime win. Tell me how Daniel Jones gives his team the best chance to win football games. It doesn't add up. I'm so tired of the excuses for this guy. It's been 6 fucking years of this shit. I'm at my breaking point.
Yeah, usually I'm the one upset on this podcast.
I'm tired of this shit, man. We have proof that somebody on this team can win games. Somebody did it last year. Yeah, it cost us Jaden Daniels. Yeah, it cost us Drake May. I don't give a shit. I'm tired of watching this team lay goose eggs on primetime and at home. Somebody actually did it. They won primetime games. They won home games last year. And you guys are going to sit here on social media and tell me Daniel Jones gives us the best chance to win, and that's a fact? That is not an effect. That is a stupid fucking opinion, and it can be debated until the Giants make a change and we see whether or not it's a fact. But right now, we don't know that that's a fact. It is only an opinion, and I need to see more evidence that supports Daniel Jones being the best quarterback on this roster, because right now, I don't have enough evidence for that.
I mean, there is none. There is no evidence of that. There's literally 0. He has not thrown a touchdown pass in MetLife in years, like with the plural years. There is nothing left to say. There's nothing left. There's nobody left. The single last supporter of Daniel Jones is hiding in a rock with Osama in a cave in Afghanistan. There is nobody left. There's nobody left thinking that Daniel Jones is the future here, guys. Nobody. And if there is, God bless you, because you, my friend, need therapy more than I do. And that's really hard to beat right now. So, this is just where we are as Giants fans. And the worst thing about it is that they refuse to make the obvious decisions. They refuse to do what's necessary. They need it's like if I was an ancient Mayan civilization, Daniel Jones would be the bad omen stopping us from having a good summer, having a good crop season, okay? He needs to be gone from this team so we can move on and have some hope and have some damn respect given back to us. And look, tomorrow, you want to know what our topic is? Quarterbacks.
Cam Ward, baby.
We're talking about Cam Ward tomorrow. That's where we are in week 7. Week 8, actually. We're going to week 8 now. That's where we are. We're talking about Cam Ward, who just lit up Louisville for like 3 touchdown passes, and he had a gorgeous corner of the end zone throw. Go for it, Anthony.
Remember last year as a member of the Seattle Seahawks on primetime when Drew Lock led a comeback win versus the Philadelphia Eagles? And Daniel Jones gives us the best chance to win?
I mean, he scored 3 points, dude. I mean, Daniel Jones just scored 7 points against a defense in the Cincinnati Bengals that was giving up the highest amount of yards of expected points allowed per play in football, and he put up 7 points. Tyrone Tracy had over 100 all-purpose yards, and we scored 7 points. We scored 3 points against a Philadelphia Eagles defense that is not very good, and Darius Slay got hurt in that game yesterday. They had a rookie in Cooper DeJean that looked like freaking prime anyone you could think of, Ed Reed back there, and I don't even know how we're sitting here debating why Daniel Jones is starting next week. And I don't know anymore. Like I really am at a loss for words. I don't get the logic. I don't get it. I mean, the only thing I can say is this, Anthony. The only thing that I'm trying to think of reasons, and if they move on from Daniel Jones right now, they're waving the white flag on the season. From an internal perspective, thinking of it from inside the Giants, if they bench Daniel Jones, the season is officially over because they've forfeited now their quarterback. They know that it's over. They know that it's done. But mathematically speaking, they're almost done. They're pretty much done. The percentages are very, very low. From a fan perspective, we just want to see hope. There's a difference between the internal perspective of the team and the outlook and the external perspective. From a fan perspective, we want something else because we can't stand this anymore. We want to have any reason to watch. But internally, if you bench Daniel Jones, it's basically forfeiting the season. With that being said, Anthony, we are going to lose against the Steelers, most likely. If we do, and it's bad, and we don't score any points, and we don't do much in primetime once again, they have to bench Daniel Jones because the season's over, not because there is any other reason, because they have to wave the white flag. We have to lay down and die because we need a quarterback so badly, and I'm not going to root for this team to lose, but I'm not going to sit here and act like losing is in our best interest because there are 2 different things here, right? There's 2 different perspectives. Losing being in our best interest and then wanting to lose. Those are 2 different things. I'm never going to root for the Giants to lose, but the Giants having a high draft pick to get rid of Daniel Jones and find another quarterback is in their best interest objectively, and if you say that is not true, you are lying to yourself, okay? That is why we're talking about Cam Ward. There are teams that need quarterbacks. And listen, I think that the Giants could absolutely end up firing Daboll and absolutely end up firing Joe Schoen this year. If that happens, I am really, really interested to see if Brandon Brown would be interested in leading this team and being a candidate. I think we interview him. We interview all the different people. We obviously do our due diligence. But I really like Brandon Brown. I think he's well respected. He's a great talent evaluator. I think he's done a lot of work. He helped with the Drew Phillips acquisition in the 3rd round. That was a key one for him. Tyrone Tracy was another one he had his eyes on. I have no problem with him. I have no problem with some of these scouts. But the decision-making from Joe Schoen, and Brian Daboll, it's a little boys' club, and I don't really get it because it needs to be more of a collaborative effort at times, and I feel like sometimes they just make decisions off a whim based on what they feel is the right thing. Based on what we saw in Hard Knocks, they sit down alone in a room, and they talk about things, and suddenly everything changes, and everyone's like, what the hell? Which is why Brian Daboll has such bad freaking relationships with half this front office and half the coaching staff, because they make decisions, and everyone else is like, wait a second, like, where did this come from? And that's why you see the Wilkins brothers pissed off, and you see Mike Kafka pissed off, and you see Mike Kafka get a fake job promotion when he's actually not doing anything at all. He's barely doing anything, guys. He's not even calling plays. He's sitting there up in the freaking office just relaying information. Like, what is he actually doing? He's disappeared. We haven't heard his name in months. You know what I mean? Like, they've buried him. They've killed his career right now with this team. It's actually hard to watch from a perspective of just having respect for a person working their way up the chart here. But, you know, looking at the standings right now, the Giants aren't even in the top 10 in the draft pecking order. The Jets are even picking above them somehow. So, you know, if you actually look at teams that are going to be, let's look at Tankathon right now, just because I'm curious to see what the order looks like.
The Giants are in there at 9th.
They're in there at 9th. Okay, so they did finally crack the top 10. Right now it's New England, who has a quarterback, which is actually good for us. Carolina, I could see them drafting a quarterback right anyway, despite Bryce Young. I think they might. Cleveland, who probably ends up drafting a quarterback as well, because they have some good pieces. Watson's just horrible. Tennessee, they might draft the quarterback too, because Will Levi is horrible. I could even see the Jets taking quarterback to prepare for the potential departure of Aaron Rodgers. there are a lot of teams here that need quarterbacks, Las Vegas being another one. If New England ends up with the first pick, the Giants are going to have to sell their soul for it. You know what I mean? They're going to have to sell their soul for Cam Ward, or they're going to have to wait and take a project. Take someone that needs, and then try to get a bridge, and then maybe wait for 2026 and see what happens. The Giants have once again pigeonholed themselves into purgatory. Like, next year's draft is already looking like a crapshoot. It's already looking like guys that are, Cam Ward wouldn't even be QB3 in this past draft class. And I love Cam Ward, but that's probably the truth. So, at the moment, Giants are hoping for a prayer. The Giants are hoping for a miracle. And it may end up becoming a year next year where we take a quarterback in the second round and see what happens and have a bridge. But if Daniel Jones is on this team next year and they go into the regular season with him as a primary starter, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't think anyone's going to watch this team. I think they're going to give up. I think John Mara knows that he has to go. And from a business perspective, he has to go. And with that being said, Anthony, if Brian Daboll gets fired, which at this point, heading into week 8, every week feels like it becomes more of a probability than a possibility, but more of a probability. Where do you think the Giants go? What happens then? Who are the options? You know what I mean? Like Mike Vrabel or Bill Belichick, and what happens? Like, where do the Giants turn? And
you trade 3 first-round picks for Mike Tomlin.
For real, they're never going to do that. The Steelers love him too much. But the truth of the matter is simple, Anthony. There is nobody that is envying what the Giants have right now. Nobody wants to run this organization. They want to have, if you get Bill Belichick, you can guarantee Joe Shane's gone too, because he just ripped their front office to shreds today publicly. He's not coming here with Joe Shane and Brian Daboll managing the team. Mike Vrabel, who knows? He's been out of football for years, been, whatever he's doing as an assistant. I think that, from a perspective of what the Giants need, they cannot go after another rookie head coach. They need someone with experience. They need someone that's going to demand discipline. They don't have that right now. They can't go after another young head coach and roll the dice with a miracle. It can't happen again. They did it with Pat Shurmur. They did it with Joe Judge, and they did it with Brian Daboll, and all of them failed. Every single one failed. They have to go get someone with some experience.
I agree with you. I don't know. Listen, I can't look that far ahead right now and try and predict who might be the head coach, whether or not Daboll and Shane are going to be here. You're right, though. Every week that they lose, it's more probable that they get fired. Every week that Bill Belichick sits in the media and shits on the Giants, it's more probable that they get fired. All these things are true. I can't see into the future. All I know is if I don't get a change at quarterback in the next 3 weeks here, I don't know if I can keep watching this season because I am just so over it. You guys just saw me crash out. I've never behaved that way on this channel. Nope, that is definitely the worst crash out that I've ever had, and it might just be the fucking start of it, man. This might just be the beginning. If I got to go through this again on Monday night, I got to watch another 95 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I am so sick of it. I miss watching New York Giants quarterbacks throw interceptions. That might sound stupid, but think about it. When the Giants quarterbacks were throwing interceptions, they were also throwing touchdowns. At least it meant they were pushing the ball downfield and taking chances. I got a perfect example for you, Alex. This is one of my favorite Eli Manning plays ever. And this highlights how the bar for quarterback play in New York has just dropped to the fucking floor since Daniel Jones has been here. You ready for this one? Do you remember when Eli Manning had a game? It was Giants versus Seahawks, prime Legion of Boom. He had this pass. Victor Cruz runs a double move up the right sideline, and Eli Manning says, F it, Cruz is down there somewhere. He throws it up into double coverage. You want to know the 2 defensive backs that were in that coverage? Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor, the 2 best defensive backs in the NFL at the time. That ball goes up there, gets batted around, lands in Victor Cruz's one hand. He one-hand catches it, 75-yard touchdown. That play is not possible with a Daniel Jones at quarterback because he would never even think to throw up a chance ball like that. And that's what I'm saying when I say I miss having New York Giants quarterbacks who throw interceptions, who aren't afraid to throw interceptions. And for what it's worth, Alex, Drew Lock is not a great quarterback. He has thrown more interceptions than touchdowns in his NFL career. But you know what that tells me? He is willing to throw the ball downfield and take chances, and he has. He's thrown those picks, for sure, but he's thrown some pretty cool touchdown passes if you look at his highlights, and he has definitely given his playmakers chances. And that's all I'm asking for is a goddamn chance. Give Nabers a chance. Give Wandale a chance. Give Slayton a chance. Give them some chances. The Giants don't even have chances to make explosive plays. The ball is not getting pushed further than 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. And when it is, it's way off the mark. Throw the ball into coverage. Throw some picks. Make it on the receiver to make a big play. Require them to make a play for you. Don't just stand there and take a sack. Don't just check it down into the ground and throw it away after you scrambled for 2 seconds. I'm tired of it, man. We need a change. If it's not obvious now, I don't know what will make it obvious for you. If you're upset with the way that I crashed out, if you're upset with the way that I cursed and the way that I let my emotions get the best of me today, imagine how these Giants players that have been in this locker room losing week in, week out for the last 5 years feel. I guarantee you, behind the scenes, these guys are crashing out worse than me because they want to win. How do you think Dexter Lawrence feels? He leads the league in sacks as a nose tackle. He might be the defensive player of the year. And his team is 2-5, and they can't buy a win. Why? Because the offense can't score more than 3 points against a shitty Eagles defense. So I'm not the only one crashing out. I guarantee you Dexter's crashing out. I guarantee you Bobby Okereke's crashing out. I'm sure they're saying way worse things than I'm willing to say on this channel right now. So don't be upset with me. Be upset with the New York Giants and hope and pray that one day they turn it around. But I promise you it won't get turned around as long as 8 is still throwing ducks in the backfield for the New York Giants. So until that changes, I think we're going to have to keep being miserable, Alex. But I think I have about had it. I need to go drink a beer and calm down. How are you feeling?
I mean, man, it's just, I feel like they say the same story, same crap every single week. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and not doing anything about it, not changing anything. The Giants are stuck in purgatory because their decision makers are not making decisions, really, mostly. They're just not doing anything, nothing at all. Are they going to trade guys away that have value? Maybe not. Are they going to bench Daniel Jones? Who knows? Are they going to bench guys for not hustling? Probably not. Like, they're just doing nothing. They're doing absolutely nothing. They're talking about it, but they're not acting about anything. And that's what's going to hurt this team down the stretch is a lack of action. They did some good things this past offseason. They fixed the offensive line to a large degree. Is it great? No. Is it good? It's better, much better with Andrew Thomas. I would argue they were very solid, like probably the best we've seen in years. But you lose your best left tackle, your star left tackle, it's going to hurt. It is going to kill you. But as Bill Belichick said today, they're playing a guy who does not know how to play left tackle at left tackle. Evan Neal was drafted in the first round, and he's not even playing. Like, I don't think Evan Neal's very good, but I'd rather him get the reps than Josh Azidu. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of where I'm at right now, unless they really think Evan Neal's that bad. I just don't know what to say. This team is hopeless. This front office is hopeless. Joe Shane, Brian Daboll, they keep going down this road. They keep heading down the direction they're going in. I don't think they make it through the rest of the season. I think John Mara cracks. I think he breaks. If they lose on Thanksgiving to the Dallas Cowboys, they might fire sell half this team, half this coaching staff on that day. That might be Black Monday for us. And I honestly think, Anthony, that Brandon Brown will be the interim GM, and whoever the hell they choose to be the interim HC, and the Giants will use that as cover until that season ends. That's where we're at right now. We're just survival. We're surviving. This is no competitive team. This is no fighting squad. This is no prideful roster. These guys are surviving until the season is over so they can go on vacation. That is where we're at in the year.
You know where I'm at is the Giants lose to the Panthers in Germany in week 9 or 10 or whatever, leave Brian Daboll's ass in Germany. Just leave him there. Leave him overseas. He can figure out his airfare. He can get from Europe to America. Just leave him. I mean, if you lose to that Panthers team should be one of the worst in history. That team is freaking terrible. The Giants lose that game, blow it up. It's over. Not coming back from that one, I can promise you that. Whether you got the bye week and you got adjustments planned, don't give a shit. You got to go. This is going to be a long one. Long season. Very long episode. My goodness. Big, beefy episode. Had a lot of fun. Actually, I didn't. I'm not feeling good. I'm very upset. I crashed out. But you know what? It happens. Emotions got the best of me. Again, imagine how the Giants players feel. But I've about had it. Let's wrap this one up. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. And comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you listen on Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we will catch you on the next one. Have a good one. And let's go Giants.